Going to let some people join us tonight. I thought tonight would be a great night to welcome Coach Serrano back into the fold. I thought it would be a great night to catch up with parents and student athletes and answer the deluge of questions that I receive over the course of the week. And, not even a slight embellishment if I were to show you my social media, and I'm really blessed that I'm able to get all of these questions and be able to answer and interact with all of these families, not only throughout the U.S. but also Canada, which I find tremendously. Um, um, I'm blessed, first of all, that people would reach out from there, but I thought tonight would be a good opportunity for Coach Serrano and I to answer some questions as to the college season experience and what it's like, and some of the details into such things as exit meetings, scholarship renewals, summer college baseball leagues, recruiting, time parameters, how things have changed. And I think it's important to share this information, not only with those of you that are live here tonight, but also with regard to, in the future when you find your way to this information. It's my hope that this will kind of allow parents to take a deep breath and not worry so much about the process. I find a lot of parents in this particular time of year get slightly anxious, and they want to have some questions answered. Are they too late? Are they behind? Are they missing out? Also, this is the time of year, good, bad, or indifferent, where college coaches have meetings with student athletes. And they're told, where they stand. Skip, how are you, sir?
Hi, Walter. I'm sure glad I'm a baseball coach and not in charge of computers.
Well, I'm just telling people we thought we would welcome your appearances back into the coach's corner, and kind of catch up a little bit, not only on Johnson University, but you and I both get a lot of questions as it pertains to topics this time of year: exit meetings, summer baseball, recruiting, time parameters, strength and conditioning on some of the younger underclassmen. So I thought this would be a good time for you and I to kind of answer some questions. And also, first and foremost, I want to say congratulations on record-setting year at Johnson University with regard to the baseball program. So congratulations on a successful first year back.
Well, Walter, let me start out by saying this. It is a pleasure to be back on with you. I've been following everything you've been doing. You continue to put out unbelievable content for the student athlete and their family. You've expanded it even more, and I'm really impressed with what you've done. In regards to our team, I'm pleased with the way our team responded. We're growing a culture there. We're building a standard, and it was a good season. It was a very good season. It was a very pleasurable season. We did accomplish some things that this program has never done before. Some players had careers they've never had before, but I give all credit to the players. Whenever there's a transition, the players have got to buy into the system. They've got to buy in, and we had some attrition, but I felt the guys that stayed and committed to what we were trying to do bought into it, and I think only good things are ahead of us.
What was it like being back in the dugout for the first time in a little while? And also, I would love to get your perspective, because we get this question a lot. NAIA Baseball. I know one of your teams in your conference is headed to the World Series, but talk a little bit about your experience within the NAIA.
I was very impressed, to be honest with you. We're in a very good league, the Appalachian League, the AAC, and the competition was really good. I mean, it was, relatively speaking. I mean, I'm not going to compare it to the SEC or the ACC, but relatively speaking, it was good. And I've shared this on recruiting trail with the young men that I'm recruiting is, don't think you're going to come in here and it's going to be easy. This is good baseball. It's good baseball. And, you've talked about this a lot, and we'll talk about this over this interview, is that there's some physical guys in this. There's men in this league. There's 22 and 23-year-old men that are playing. And the thing that I walked away after this season was, I felt there was a lot more scary hitters than there were scary pitchers throughout what I saw in NAIA baseball. I kind of felt, and we saw some dudes that had good stuff, that maybe because of grade issues, they're at Division I, maybe they got caught up in a numbers game. But what I recognize is, if you're 87, 88 and above, you're like 95, 96 in the Power 5, in my opinion. So my point in that is, you don't see a lot of that. There's the better teams you saw, they'd run out 5 or 6 guys like that. But I was impressed with it. I was impressed. I one of the reasons that intrigued me to this job was the fact that I knew our league was really good. People had told me that, and it's a good sounding board. You said one team. I think is Reinhardt. I know Wesleyan's in, and Reinhardt's another team that has a chance to get in unless they got knocked out today. So we could end up with 2 teams in the NAIA World Series.
Well, and you also compete against Cumberland, correct? In Kentucky.
We got to compete with them in a non-conference. Actually, Tyler Shelton, one of my assistants, his father, Brad, is the head coach there. And we actually played really good against them in a non-conference game and beat them. And they're loaded. There's a lot of good teams out there that are going to go to the World Series. But I feel Cumberland, Kentucky, especially since they experienced it last year and they went 2-Q, they know what to expect. And I think they're a dangerous team going into this NAIA World Series.
I just want to touch upon this briefly, because you had just touched upon it as far as your recruiting. Last year, you had to kind of hit the ground running. It was somewhere in the middle of July, and you just kind of got that ants in your pants, wanted to get back in the dugout. And so you were now you're able to get really a fresh start. High school seasons across the country is starting to wrap up or wind down. What's something you're going to hope to do differently as a staff with regard to recruiting at Johnson University?
Well, I want guys that aspire to play at the highest level. I want guys that want to play at the Division I level, that want to play at high levels. I don't want a guy who's just settling to go to an NAIA school because they think they're going to play. It's going to be easier to play. My program hasn't changed. I want kids to come in here and play for a year or two, develop, get stronger, put up numbers, and then I'm going to help them get to the next level. So we're looking for athletes, Walter. We're looking for guys that are athletic. I think that's the one thing I feel we can get better in, is being more athletic in all aspects on the diamond, not just as position players, but on the mound. So we're trying to get more athletic. We feel like we've secured some guys that, and as you know, Walter, at any level, it never stops. I've been on the road recruiting since our season's been over. I'm getting on a plane at 5:30 in the morning to go to the West Coast to watch a junior college state tournament. So it doesn't stop. And it's especially because we're not the first choice of a lot of young men out there. They all want to go to higher levels. So we've got to throw the net out a lot wider and bring in players. So we will recruit all summer long. But I really like the foundation and the nucleus that we're bringing back next year. And now if we could, with the pieces we're filling in, and I know some of the teams in our conference that had really good years were senior laden teams. And now we will be kind of that team next year. We had a lot of juniors this year. So I like the direction it's going, and it's challenging. But I love the challenge. I mean, there's a lot of people that wouldn't take over a program that won 5 games the year before. That was a great challenge for us. And I'll tell you this now that our season's over. My goal when I took this job over was to win 25 games. Well, we fell a game short. We ended up with 24.
Game short, right?
Yeah, game short. And but there's nothing to be ashamed of. This team overcame a lot, and we did a lot of very good things in year one.
Well, I think what I would like to do is, first of all, for those parents of student athletes that may have lived under a rock over the last couple of years, Coach Serrano, talking Cal State Fullerton, University of Tennessee, we're talking Irvine, we're talking Omaha, we're talking a big time Division I coach. So what I want to get across to parents and student athletes is we're going to discuss, and we're going to start with Johnson University. As Coach Serrano just mentioned, he wants guys that want to come in and play at the next level, and he wants to prepare them. I think, Coach, the entire staff has some connectivity to Division I baseball, Coach Moss, and so forth. But this is the new era, which is kind of what I want to share with parents. College coaches at some of these higher levels, Division II, Division I, they want resumes. They want proof that a student athlete understands time management, time in the gym, and they have a resume as a college student athlete that they've competed in that environment. So let's start there, Coach. You as a staff are looking for players that if they improve to the point where you think, okay, you've earned it, your wings, you've earned your wings, so to speak, we want you to go fly and represent Johnson University at a Division I school. Talk a little bit about the realities now of college baseball. It's Division I going to 3, Division III to Division I, NAIA, Division II, Division I. It's different in this recruiting landscape.
Walter, it's really different, and it's very difficult on the student athletes. It's difficult on the coaches. It's perform now. It's be ready to play now, and that's unfortunate. Fortunately for us, and this is what intrigues me, is that I'm at a place that we really want to put an emphasis on development, because we're trying to develop these guys, not just to help our program be successful. We're trying to develop these guys to push them on to another school. I'm not going to compare us, but I would love to be like John Calipari at Kentucky, formerly of Kentucky, now at Arkansas, where it's a one and done deal, where a guy comes in, he puts them, and we've got some guys coming in with that kind of background that I think we're going to have them 1 year. We had a young man this year, Tyler Rojas, who I know you're well aware of, that if it wasn't for an injury that he got early in the season, he would have probably been a one and done. And he's going to be a guy that anyone around the country in a year from now is going to want in the middle of the diamond. So I want those type of guys. I want those kind of pitchers that they don't have to be 90 miles an hour right now. They could be 85, 86. And then with our throwing program, if we get them up to 88, 89 and strike throwers, that somebody at the mid-major would want to take. I mean, I feel there's a lot of good junior colleges out there, but I feel with our coaching staff playing at a higher level that if I pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got a shortstop, I got a second baseman, I got a right-handed pitcher, left-handed pitcher, I would think someone would want to take him as a plug-in guy with the transfer portal.
And the operative phrase there was plug-in. And I think parents need to be aware, which is why I wanted to have this conversation with you tonight. Because this time of year, Coach, a lot of parents don't understand what the process entails as a college staff at the completion of a season. Like what takes place. In other words, we have a 40-man roster of which 27 are traveling. So at some point, some of the athletes are going home. I would love for you, because you just did this, you just completed your season. Talk to us about the terms like exit meetings and what you try to share with players. And there is a harsh reality. Sometimes, not at Johnson University, I don't know anything about that, but at the Division I and II levels, there can be a conversation that might be candid where they're not coming back or they're not going to get the playing time. Talk about the exit meeting from a coaching perspective to college student athletes.
Well, like you said, we just had them, and I'm not going to deny there were some casualties at Johnson University too. I mean, some of it had to do with academics. Some of it had to do with playing time. It's the harsh reality, Walter. I mean, and it's the thing that a lot of people, as you said, they kind of try to bury their head sometimes of, oh, that's not going to happen. The reality of it is that you have to walk on campus, one, being physically ready to perform, or being ready to work to get physically ready to perform. And then you've got to work. And I've said this for many years, there's a lot of players in high school that think they're working hard, but when they get to college, they realize they were hardly working. And that's a reality. I mean, going and hitting in the cages every once in a while, going out throwing 1 or 2 days a week in the summer, that isn't good enough. I mean, so in our exit meetings, we meet with every player and we sit down as a coaching staff with every player. And we open up, first we talk about, the first question I ask is, do you plan on returning? I don't want to assume anything in any meeting. Are you planning on returning? Okay. And then I go into their academic and how they did academically, which to me is the most important. Are you getting the job done that somebody is paying for, whether it's the institution or it's through loans or through family members? And then we start talking about their season, and we ask them where they feel how they felt they did. Then they hear the true reality from the coaching staff. I always head up the meeting, but I'll let whatever coach works with that position take the bull by the horns. But there's some hard conversations, and I believe in transparency, and I'm not there to hurt anyone's feelings. But I want to be truthful with them, and I want to tell them you got to do A, B, and C. If you didn't perform and get on the field, you need to do these things to be able to have a chance here at Johnson. And I think across the country, that's what's going on, is that they have to hear the reality, and they have to hear it, Walter. They have to take it in and listen to it. They can't say, well, next year's going to be different. I've heard that so many times. Next year's going to be different. Well, you just wasted a year. You know what I mean? Don't give me that procrastination. Next year's going to be different. And I've shared with every player. Next year's season starts today, the day we had the exit meeting. It doesn't start August 15th when we start school. It starts today. And everything you plan on, everything you're doing with sleep, with nutrition, with weights, with throwing programs, with hitting programs, with sprint programs, you've got to do it 365 if you want to keep up with the big boys.
So I don't want to overstate this, but I do want to share with parents, Coach Serrano and I, there's a network of people that we both talk with regard to today's student athlete. And the common thread, if we've paid attention to all the coaches that Coach Serrano and I have spoken with over the last 13 months, physicality. We hear coaches talk about, impacting a baseball. We hear coaches saying getting behind a baseball. And so, Coach, what I would love for you to kind of discuss with regard to your incoming high school student athletes is talking about a lot of parents and athletes feel like they need to chase the travel ball, when in reality, you may be best served by getting in the weight room and really gaining the strength necessary to impact the baseball, to have that arm strength, that carry on a ball. Can you talk a little bit about the shift as far as with regard to, you mentioned it, there's 22, 23, 24-year-old men that are, playing in not only in the NCAA, but the NAIA as well.
Walter, I'm going to start with, you said the perfect word, the shift. I feel there was a shift maybe 5 or 6 years ago because all the places I've ever been before, we used to push our guys, go play summer ball, go play. The more you play, the better you're going to get. But there has been a shift. I'm not saying guys shouldn't play baseball. Guys shouldn't watch baseball. I don't think kids watch baseball enough. They watch highlights. They don't watch the game, and you understand the game. But there has been a shift and I'll say this, and I love this team. We were out physicaled by everybody in our conference. We were out physicaled, and that's going to change. That's going to be different. Guys, other teams' balls went farther than ours. Guys had better quit. They got to more balls on defense. So that's going to change, and that might be the athlete we start bringing in. But it has changed. You have to commit to your body. You have to, because you are going up against men. You're going up against strong kids. And I know in high school, I don't want to say it's easy to be good, but you're performing against underdeveloped bodies. And now when you get to college, you're competing against developed bodies that are grown men. And even that, I saying men, but even that 20-year-old, that guy that has 2 years experience on you, that's been in the weight room for 2 years, that's grinded, that guy's got a huge advantage over you. And you've got to come in, and everyone's body's different. I realize that, Walter. Everyone puts on weight at different times, and some guys could put strength on, but you've got to commit to that. And you've emphasized this for a long time, a long, long time. And I think it's pure reality. It is pure reality. You talk to 1,000 coaches, and 999 of them are going to say that the physicality is something that, one, attracts a coach to recruit a guy, and two, that's how the guy gets on the field.
Absolutely, 100% correct. And what I want parents to take away from this is we're talking to a what I would call an elite college coach that has been around West Coast to East Coast. Now he finds himself in Tennessee. So this is somebody that has a background and intimate knowledge onto the inner workings. And one of the topics that we get asked a lot is this upcoming, say, 7 to 10 day window we're about to enter into the coaching carousel. As a college coach, you know, it's a fact, it's a reality. Coaches have different tenures. Some stay an extremely long time, i.e. Augie Garrido or Tim Corbin or those types of guys, Johnny Mack down in Florida Atlantic. But this is the time of year where both head coaches and coaching staffs kind of begin to move. And talk a little bit about that with regard to the recruiting, not only with regard to the high school athlete, but the transfers that begin to occur. And that really plays a big effect on high school student athletes and their possible or potential landing spots.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. And I know there's been some publications that have put out that this could be another big year of a lot of in the carousel. The bottom line is, and I think this is important for families to hear, is it unfortunately it has become a business, especially at the high level Division I. It's become a business. And somebody made this comment, a coach that took over a program, I won't say his name, and he was going to have to make some roster changes after his first year. And some players were upset about that. And his exact comment was, which was reality, he says, you know, the coach that I just took over for last year, he said, because you guys didn't play well, he had to uproot his family and find another job. So that's kind of what's going on. And it, as Walter, as you know, as we're grown men, that's reality. If you don't get the job done, you're not going to have a job. And that's reality in life. I'm not even talking baseball right now. And that's the thing that players and parents have to understand is do your job. And now you're going to have the carousel with the coaches that's going to start happening. So you're going to have guys shifting all over the place. That's going to change players' thoughts. And then I think what's upon us, Walter, because of some of the transfer guys that are in the portal that have done well, is you're going to see thousands of kids entering the portal. And that's a good thing, but it's not a good thing, because I'd like to see the number of how many guys are still stuck in the portal, to be honest with you.
Well, I know that number as far as I sent something out last week on Twitter. You know, it's a little under 50% that don't end up sticking anywhere. You know, you get a certain percentage that will stay laterally transferring 1-to-1. A lot of it goes Division I to Division III and some Division IIs. A lot of JUCOs coming into NCAA, but it's a little under a half. And, you know, I have a lot of parents that ask me about the portal. And the thing is the portal has been around. The portal is not the issue. The changes and the amendments to the portal, for previous decades, there was a lateral transfer. You could leave in December and go to a team in January. And then they kind of did the whole, you have to do a year of residency. And now it's become, you can transfer each year if you were so inclined to do so. And it's all pro student athlete. But what I would like parents to understand from your perspective, and I think parents need to really understand this dynamic, the business component to college baseball is about to become much different. I mean, there's a movement afoot where there will be and I'm going to call it the professional division, probably sometime over the summer after the Omaha coaches meetings and maybe in the fall. You know, you're going to have teams that will have budgets, and there'll be a big change at the Division I level. There'll be a professional division and an Olympic division, for lack of a better term. So talk about that from a perspective as a coach. You really now, in that professional arena, for lack of a better, you can't get it wrong. You got to go out and make sure you're securing student athletes, whether it's through the portal or JUCO, postgraduate. I mean, coaches need to get it right. It's nothing personal. It's not like we're putting the high school athlete in a corner. This is truly an evolving landscape that we find ourselves in with regard to being a minor league, for lack of a better term, for the professional baseball, but it's a business as far as the fan bases are concerned. So talk about that. Your school is going through a re-energizing of their baseball program, but it's happening all across the country.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Walter. And I'm going to say this, that I think one of the biggest things that families need to hear loud and clear is it always doesn't come down to the ability to be a player and help the program. Sometimes it comes down to character issues. Sometimes it
Oh,
comes down to maturity of are is your son getting up to be at 6 o'clock weights 3 days a week? Is he showing up on time to practice every day? Is he getting his tail in the seat in classroom every day on time? That's the easiest way as a coach that you could see. Putting writing filling out a lineup, you have to have trust in those 9 guys, that those 9 guys are going to go to war for you and have done a lot of things right. And I think one of the things that curtails careers and hurts guys is their lack of maturity and discipline on a daily basis. And I saw it this year with some young freshmen that weren't handling the school part of it, weren't handling the social part of it, and it buried them. It just absolutely buried them. And it's for a lot of these kids, it's the first time away from home, and they don't have someone looking in their room to see if they're coming in at night at a certain time. So a lot of that is what's causing the portal. I'll give you another thing. If you aren't asked to leave by the program you're with and you're on scholarship or you're on the roster, I would think long and hard before jumping in the portal and think the grass is
amen.
greener somewhere else.
Amen.
A lot of people, it's, well, we didn't get to play this year. Let's go find somewhere else to go. If that coaching staff is bringing you back and renewing your scholarship, even if they take a little bit away from you because maybe you didn't perform to their level, you don't understand. That's the best place to stay, is where you're comfortable. You've already started school there. You have relationships, because that jump from your freshman year to your second year is immense.
Well, I can remember just with Tyler, it was just a massive transition from the freshman year to the sophomore year. And I try to tell parents all the time, if you leave your exit meeting and the coaching staff is talking about next year and where you have a home. You don't need to do the musical chair dance. And so I think that's a great point that you make there. One of the other things that I really would love for you to explain through your years of experience is I have a lot of parents and their athletes are middle infielders. And they will say to me, well, my son's been a middle infielder since he's been 9. And I try to explain, college coaches, they take the 8 or 9 best bats and they find spots for him. So your son may be a second baseman, but he's a right fielder because, this is the need for the team. Can you talk a little bit about, that position focus or that position centric mindset? Probably not your best kind of mental option there when you're trying to be recruited. Wherever you can get your bat in the lineup is kind of where you want to have some flexibility or versatility.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the other thing, I'm not gonna go away from that question. I think the other thing that parents need to think about is coaches put bigger amounts of money in certain areas on the field.
Talk about that because that's important for parents.
You could just take a line and do a rectangle right up the middle of the field, catchers, pitchers, middle infielders, and right to center field. And if you could put all your money into those guys, and those guys are the bats you're talking about, those guys spread out over the field. And that's what people don't understand. You could be a great hitting first baseman, but if that's your only position, there's probably not a lot of people that are going to invest. They're going to invest in you, but not a lot of money. The money's going to go down the middle of the diamond. And that's where the big money of the big scholarships are going to. And you try to get a lot of those guys because they could go to other positions. A lot of times that corner left fielder can't go play center fielder, can't go play third base or second base. That shortstop, second baseman, that center fielder, they could play anywhere on the field most of the time because of the best athletes. So you got to understand that when you're recruiting. But you're right, Walter. You got to expect change. You may have been the starting shortstop all the way through high school, or the starting third baseman all the way through high school. You've got to expect that if you want to get in the lineup, you may have to make a position change. And that's why I say, don't pigeonhole yourself. What we like to do with our team is in the fall, we have every infielder play every position. We may not know that we may have It happened this year. It happened this year with us. We recruited a guy that was a second baseman in junior college for 2 years. Guess what? We put him at shortstop, and he won the shortstop job. He was our shortstop all year long. If we would have just kept him at second, like he played his whole junior college life, and said, well, he's a second baseman, left-handed second base, well, then we would have never known that he was probably our best shortstop.
Can you talk a little bit to parents? And I just want this to be as organic as possible. The strongest, fastest, best hitting athlete is going to play what position in the outfield?
The strongest center field.
All right. The best athlete with the strongest arm, what position will he play?
You talking on the whole field?
Like if you get a guy and he has a cannon and he's a big, tall, left-hand hitting gazelle, talk about the right field position.
Well,
I get
right.
parents
Well,
that
okay. I understand that. Your best arm should be in right field.
Right.
Center field does not have to be your best arm because there's not going to be a lot of plays in center
Right.
field that you're going to throw a guy out.
Right.
So the best arm guy is going to be usually in right field, and usually your best athlete of covering ground and is going to be your center fielder. But if you have a guy with a cannon, he's going to play right field, and most of the time the least throwing guy is going to be in left field.
Well, I try to have this conversation with parents. They think right field is, intuitively
They're
they
referring
this is
back
the
to
worst
Little League.
guy, right?
Yeah.
And I try to tell them, look, go into the SEC and look at the guy playing right field. Go anywhere in professional baseball, look at the guy playing right field. Those tend to be the big money guys or the middle of the order thumpers. So if somebody says we want you to play right field, they're not trying to be mean and they're not trying to hurt your son. They're just trying to tell you you're the best, strongest, fastest, best hitting outfielder we have. You have to go to right.
Yeah, you're right. And right field is going to, like you said, it's going to most of the time be the most physical guy. Sometimes at center fielder, you get away with the smaller guy. That's the little rabbit in the outfield. He doesn't have to be as, in fact, there's not a lot of times you're going to see a big physical guy in center field. You're going to see more of a smaller stature guy that can really run.
I think it was Mississippi State with was it Jake Magnum or one of those type of guys, little guy with left-handed bat. So I just have a question that came in on Twitter, and this father would like to know, when a student athlete as a high school player is going into a team that's getting a new head coach, similar to what you had to deal with this year at Johnson, is the college coach going to put a lot of stock on what they've heard from the previous regime, or are they going to give you enough time to kind of evaluate their skill sets? What is it like for a new student athlete with a first-year head coach going into a program?
Well, I think everyone's going to be a little bit different. That's a great question, Walter. I think every coach is going to handle it a little bit differently. And I could just talk about when I was replaced by Tony Vitello. I wasn't sour grapes. I had an opportunity and I didn't get the job done. Tony's the next man to step up. And we had a conversation about the roster he was inheriting. And we talked about the players that he had. That doesn't always happen. I know I was fortunate this year, the program I took over, I had one of the assistants, Robbie Howard, who's a legendary high school coach in Tennessee. He's been with the program, and I retained him, and we met and talked about a player that was returning. But that doesn't always happen. I think sometimes coaches I'll say this, Walter, I hate the term, I can't wait to get my players in. Okay. When you take over a program, those are your players. Whether you recruit them or not, those are your players. And I hate that term. When we get our players in, things will change. No, those are your players from day one of the program you took over. And here's the thing that happened at Johnson is I didn't cut one guy. Okay. We had a big roster. I didn't cut one guy, but through attrition, when the team I took over realized, hey, guess what? This is being run like a Division I program. There's a true commitment to what we're doing every day. We've got early morning weights. We've got this. I think some guys realize, hey, this isn't what I signed up for.
Right.
But I think that's a great question by that player's parent. I think if there is a coaching change, I think it's important for the player to communicate with the new coach and introduce himself. I don't think you need to send in video. He's already in the program. But coaches, when they take over a program, they have a right to do whatever they want. And that's the harsh reality of it. They have a right that if they have some guys that may be coming from their old program, which is something we could do now with the transfer portal, some of their recruits they had signed at the other place, they have every right to do that. And that's the thing. That's the one thing I do like the transfer portal is, and I know there's been a lot of talk back and forth on it. Us coaches have the right to go wherever we want, when we want. So why don't the players get that opportunity? Why make a player stay in a program if his coach leaves? He has the right to leave. So why doesn't the player get a right to leave?
Well, it's starting to percolate now, Coach. Everybody's saying welcome back. I don't know if you can see the Instagram or anything like that, but I'm getting a lot of questions. So this is the Moneyball question that I think I've gotten 4 parents that want me to ask you this question. And I truly believe there's nobody better to answer this question than you. Okay, so in the way the world works now, and we touched on this in the very beginning, but the process has slowed down. So it no longer revolves around that freshman and sophomore in high school. And really, to be perfectly honest, it really doesn't even push the junior in high school. Coaches now are waiting as they're getting into the latter half of the junior season, which is now entering their rising senior. Can you just talk about the reality of the recruiting time parameters has definitely slowed down? No longer are colleges, whether we're talking Johnson University or the University of Tennessee, we're waiting to see the physicality, the mental and physical maturation. Just touch upon, you don't need to chase. You're not too late. If you're performing and you're competing, coaches are going to find you.
Well, I agree with you, and amen to all that. I'm glad it has slowed down. I'm not talking even for myself. I'm talking about for the student athletes. It our industry had gotten out of control. That we're getting kids committed in junior high and freshman year. That young man can't even drive yet. You know what I mean? He's making a decision, and he's making a decision for his life, not
Right.
4 years, for his life. You and I have talked about where you go to college, it impacts you for 40 years, not 4. So yes, it has slowed down. My advice to any recruitable athlete, any parent of a recruitable athlete, is just be patient and keep working. Keep working. I'll be honest with you, Walter. In the old way of recruiting, some of my best players that ended up being All-Americans and major leaguers were the guys we signed in their senior year, in the spring of their senior year, because you knew what you were going to get when they walked on campus. They were not the finished product, but they were mature and much more had much more strength to them. And I just think what's happening is the players feel the pressure, and then the parents feel the pressure because they hear Johnny's going here and Jimmy's going here. So what's happening to my son? And they make rash decisions that are poor decisions in the long run. Work wins. Okay. That's a power. Work wins. Keep working. Put your head down. I used to give this advice to assistant coaches. I'm going to compare this. When you're an assistant coach, you're the best assistant coach when you're not looking for the next job. You're just trying to be the best assistant coach for the head coach you're working for. Somebody will find you. Okay. But if you're looking for other jobs, you're not doing the best job for what the person and the organization you're with. And those players that are looking, I want to go here, you're not performing at your best for your high school coach or your high school teammates. Put your head down and work. And the way the industry works now, Walter, if you're good enough, somebody's going to find you.
So I say this to parents because they hear that if you're good enough, they'll find you. And then you get the response and the retort back. Well, that doesn't necessarily, you got to go to the camps. You got to do. The bottom line is, if you are a baseball player, regardless of your age, and you're able to compete, and when I say that, parents think I'm talking about results or statistics. I'm talking about your feet are in the box, and you're putting an aggressive at bat. You're impacting a baseball. You're making a routine play in the field, and you're accurate, strong and accurate throw. You're running the bases with some instinctual kind of aggression, and you're challenging the other team every single play. Coaches, regardless of where you live, will find you. And so there is validity to that. You don't have to go to a showcase or an event and be at your all-time best. You have to go and show that you're ready to compete. And I have a question here from a parent asking, Coach, in your opinion, at what age should a student athlete, or should they not, be a pitcher or a pitcher and a position player hitter, is really the question. Is that something you should just do both until you get to college and let the college coaches make that call?
Yeah, I think you should do both. I think it helps you. It's just like I like multi-sport players. You know what I mean? I don't think kids should just be baseball players. I think kids should be multi-sport. I think it allows them to be more athletic, more competitive when they do become just baseball players. But here's the word that I dislike, Walter. The letters PO.
P.O.
PO. Okay. I know when we grew up, Walter, if you were a pitcher, you were a pitcher. You know what I mean? And I know our society now, our generation, they hate the word PO. And that's why guys want to play other positions, because they just hate the word PO. I don't like the word pitcher only. I feel pitcher's the most important guy on the field, to be honest with you. It's the guy that allows you to be successful as a team when he's able to command the baseball. But yes, I don't think there's anything wrong with playing both sides of the baseball, being in the field and being a pitcher too. But don't be offended if you are just a pitcher in high school. You can make an impact on your team just as much if you're just a pitcher, and you don't have to be play both sides of it. I think that sometimes I've noticed this at the college level, Walter. It's hard for kids to come in and do both. Usually, and I've been around some really good ones and through my career, and usually what you see in year one in college, the coach will make up a decision because it's hard to do both in the freshman year, because it's hard to learn both systems of the signs from the offense and all the intricacies of that and all the stuff with the pitching. But if you could play both sides of the baseball when you're not pitching or play a position, I would never discourage that. And when you get to college, understand that you may just end up being one of those one position.
So this is going to be my final question for tonight. And as always, Coach, you're on point. I'm so glad to have you back in the fold. And, over the next few weeks, we're going to have a lot of coaches. Again, there's a lot of coaches changing positions and changing locations. You have West Coast schools coming east, East Coast schools going west. It's a lot of changes within the conferences, Oklahoma and Texas, the SEC, UCLA, USC into the Big Ten. But, Coach, I want to ask you this because parents, I'd say this probably once a week on Twitter, a lot of student athletes, young and in high school, are participating in baseball. But let's see if you pick up on this. At the younger ages, they're not just playing the game. They're, in my opinion, we have taken away the enjoyment of the childhood. And I know you grew up in an area that was very fertile, and you played a lot of games, whether it was in your backyard, your street, your sandlot. And when I say this, people think I'm the old man with the get off my lawn. But what I try to say is kids need to have a passion. And I've heard it said, you have to have the grit before you can grind. You have to have that passion. Can you just talk about when you're looking at an athlete, isn't there a certain dynamic to your recruiting about the passion and the fun and the love of the game that you can see in some student athletes, but it's missing in a lot of others?
You're right. And let me just tell you a story. There's a lot of high school playoffs going on here in the state of Tennessee, and I've been trying to attend as many as I can. And I was told of a young man, I'm not going to say his name. I could legally say it because I'm an NAIA coach, so we don't have those rules. But there was a young man that I was told to go see. And he's a two-way guy. He plays an infield position and he pitches. And he's a little undersized, but what a fierce competitor. It took me 5 minutes to realize. I watched him throw the ball across the diamond when the first baseman was throwing the ball in between innings. And I thought, okay, that's a baseball player right there. You can just see by the way he approached the ball, the way he threw, that's a baseball player. Then he entered the game in the fifth inning to come into pitch. And his numbers are unbelievable. It's 47 strikeouts to 3 walks on the season. Okay. So he fills up the zone with 3 pitches. Now it's not 90. Okay. But it's going to get a lot of people out. Okay. And I texted him after the game and I said, you do something that no coach in America can teach you to do. And I said, you compete your tail off in everything you do. Well, he's undersized. He doesn't play at a big high school. And he caught I was told to go see him. I was inquired to go see him, but he caught my eye right away, Walter, because the passion he played the game. I'm going to say something to you. I know you've had your talks on it. You know when my favorite time of baseball was when I was growing up was Little League Baseball.
Amen.
That was my best time in my career was Little, and I've had some great times in baseball, but that's where relationships were built. That's where the foundation was built. That's where the fun of baseball was built. The scoreboard really didn't even matter to us. Okay. We were just trying to do something as a team together every single time we got on the field. And I think what's going on in travel ball is not even so much the scoreboard, it's who's watching me today, who's here to see me today, and they're not playing the game. And again, I'm sounding like the old guy that's sitting on his rocking chair myself. Okay. But it's the reality of what's going on now. And kids are playing for the wrong reasons. How many kids are turning on the TV set? There's Walter, you and I know that when we grew up, there was one game on a week on
Right,
TV.
one game, and
Okay.
I had This Week in Baseball with Mel Allen to get me through.
Yes. And how I learned about players was collecting baseball cards and reading the paper and all that stuff. Kids have it right in the forefront of everything they do, but instead they watch highlights. You can't learn the game by watching highlights. And what do you see in highlights? You see 95 with spin rate off the chart. You see 3-run bombs they're going 450 feet, but you're not learning the game and learning how to be passionate about the game. Because as you know, Walter, in your time of coaching and around your boys, there's so many different things that go into this beautiful sport of baseball. And that's why so many people say it's boring. The people that say it's boring don't know all the stuff that goes into baseball.
Right.
They're showing up to see the 3-run home run or see the guy throw 100 miles an hour. Well, if you're coming to see that, yeah, it is going to be boring. But all the things that lead up to that, and that's what I think the kids are missing nowadays, is there's so many things that parts of the game of why this ended up happening, because maybe in at bat a guy had 2 at bats before, wore the pitcher down where he center cut a pitch, and that's why the guy hit it 450 feet. So again, I go back to Little League because I know you're right. Those were my best days. Those were the days that allowed me to have a baseball career. If my Little League days would have been miserable, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed the life that I've had in baseball to this point.
Well, Coach, I can say that lots of people are happy that you have made a return, as am I, obviously. I followed the season quite a bit, not only online, watching some of the broadcasts when they were available, but also in your social media. So welcome back. I'm hoping that you and I can kind of, going forward, kind of get some of the coaches from the West Coast that are coming east and kind of get their feeling on, what it's going to be like to play in a new conference, new part of the country, things like that. But more importantly, I want parents to understand, if you have questions for Coach Serrano, myself, please, by all means, first and foremost, please subscribe to the channel. It makes us feel good, but we're trying to build something so that we can honestly share direct information as to what is actually factually going on within the sport across the country at all levels of college baseball. The other thing is let us help you navigate this whole entire process to the best of our ability by answering your questions, even though you think they might be silly. They're not. It's all about the love and the passion and the joy that both Coach Serrano and I have for the sport of baseball. So, Coach, thank you again, and I'm looking forward, hoping next week we can have somebody from the left coast. I talked to Timmy McConnell. I know a lot of those guys are getting ready for exams, but now that you're back in the mix, maybe some of the left coast guys will consider joining us.
And Walter, I want to put a little plug in that you and I have talked about, and I'm putting this plug in so people can mark their calendars. We're not sure what week it's going to be, but Walter approached me, and I think this will be, Walter, you've had some unbelievable guests on some great topics, but Walter had approached me about having an academic advisor from a top university on, and we're working on that right now. And the person I'm going to bring on is dynamic, one of the best I've ever worked with. And I think every parent and student athletes need to be on that night, because she will be able to navigate through what she has seen those kids that come through school and their struggles and their successes and what it looks like, and can educate on what parents should be doing with their counselors at school, their academic advisors. And we know we're talking baseball, but there's other things that are important. And when we have this academic advisor on, I think it's going to be a knockout for everybody to see.
So I think Coach spilled the beans there, but let's let all the parents know, and this will go on when people find their way to it. Coach and I have decided we wanted to kind of really give a full, broad understanding of the total environment as a college student athlete. So that obviously has to do with admissions and academic advisors, director of baseball operations. They're the ones who handle all the equipment and how to get, who we're going to talk to, when they're going to talk to them, the equipment managers. We want to give you a really broad look at what the realities of being a college student athlete are like. So we'll have people from admissions department, financial aid department, academic advisors, and these will be from schools from all over the country so that we can talk Division III, Division I, and all of the different rules that apply. But I think both Coach Serrano and I feel very passionate about giving parents a true, full understanding of what that is like when your student athletes' feet hit campus in the fall of their freshman year. It can be very intimidating, and for some, it can be overwhelming. So we're going to try to help educate families and student athletes to the best of our abilities. Coach, I forgot that, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
No, Walter, I just want to close with, I'm really happy to be back. Don't get me wrong, I was glad to be in the dugout, but when our season ended, I couldn't wait to get back to you and say, let's do this again. You look like you need a partner again to help with some of the interviews.
Well, I can tell you that everybody is very happy that you're back. I'm happy. Next week, Thursday, 9 p.m., we're going to start to have more and more coaches on, but also some of the people in the background of college athletics to help bring an awareness to parents. So, Coach, best of luck going forward this week. I know you're on the recruiting trail tomorrow morning. I know you got to get up early, but thank you for joining us again tonight.
Thanks, Walter.
All right, Captain. And don't forget, folks, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button and help spread the word about the channel Coach's Corner every Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, each and every week. Thank you very much and have a great week in baseball.